Hi guys. So we'll start with this chapter upthrust. It's one of the best chapter actually in the ninth standard, whole of the ninth standard textbook, and it actually involves a lot of application. Though there are a few definitions and all which you need to by heart, but you'll actually like this chapter. See, now there are three parts in this chapter. So all the three parts have got numericals. So there are a lot of numericals in this chapter, but according to the boards or according to your school, you have only got the simple numericals. So we'll start with the part A first. Okay, now some of these part you've already done in the 8th standard. Some of the part of ABC, everything you already covered in the 8th standard chapter. I think it was uh, pressure or something like that in your 8th standard. So see, let's say there's some object. So say there's a sphere or a football. So a football now, if you drop it in the air, we know that it will go where? It will always go in the downward direction. Now why does that football start moving in the downward direction? That is because of the gravitational force which is acting on the body, which is also called as what? Weight. So we call it as the gravitational force or the weight of the body. So due to the weight, due to its own weight or due to the gravitational force acting on it, their body will be pulled downwards and hence it will start going downwards. So let's say you have a football and you drop it over a pool, you'll find it will start moving downward. But when it strikes the surface of the water, okay, you must have seen, when it strikes the surface of the water, it'll probably go submerged a little bit, but then again it will come back and it will start floating. So this is how it will float then. Okay, now why does it float? Because right now there is also an upward force on it. Okay, so that upward force what it experiences is called as what? Upthrust. So whenever a solid or an object, whenever it is submerged in a liquid, it experiences an upward force, and that upward force is called as what? Upthrust. There is one more name for this upward force. It is also called as buoyant force. Okay, I'll just write it out here. It is also called as what? Buoyant force. So what do you mean by buoyant force? Okay, the upward force which the object will experience or a body will experience when it is submerged in a fluid. And this buoyant force is called as FB. F for force and B is a subscript for buoyant force. And this property of liquid to exert that force is called as what? Buoyancy. So what is buoyancy? Buoyancy is the property of a liquid to exert an upward force whenever a solid is submerged in it. Okay, so remember, whenever a body is put into a liquid, it will experience these two forces, that is the weight of a body and the upthrust. Now whether a body will float, sink, whatever happens to it, it will depend upon the relation between upthrust and the weight, meaning whether weight is greater than upthrust or weight is more than the upthrust. Now before we start with all this, remember just one more very important thing, that there will always be some loss in weight of a body, some loss in apparent weight of a body. There will always be some amount of loss in the apparent weight of a body. What do you mean by apparent weight of a body? So say for example, if you've tried, it is difficult to hold your friend on your back or on your shoulder normally. But if you try the same thing inside the water, you will find it very easy. Why? Because when your friend is inside the water, he is experiencing what? Already upthrust, because of which he'll feel what? Lighter to you. So that is called as its apparent weight. Like, it becomes easier for you to drag your friends in water. Why? Because the apparent weight is lesser. If a wooden log is floating in water and if you push it in water only, it's easier. But if there is a wooden log lying on the ground and then you want to push it, it becomes very difficult. Because whenever an object is in water, it will experience an upthrust, because of which its apparent weight becomes what? Lesser, or objects feel lighter in water. Like for example, if you are trying to remove a bucket of water, okay, from a pool, so as long as the bucket is inside the water, it will feel lighter. But suddenly when that bucket comes out, then what will happen? You will suddenly feel very heavy. That is because when the bucket was pulled out of the water, there was no upthrust exerted on that bucket of water, and that's why it will feel what? Lighter. So they can ask you any such example that why does it become easier when, for example, while you're doing fishing. So as long as the fish is inside the water, it feels lighter. But when you remove it outside, suddenly it will become what? Heavy. Okay. So this is the basic concept about the upthrust. Now next thing, the formula for upthrust. Okay, one more thing. Remember, I hope you'll remember what you mean by fluids. So what do you mean by fluids? Liquids and gases together are called as what? Fluids. So remember, fluids can exert upthrust, meaning it's not just that water or the liquids are exerting upthrust, it is a gas also who's exerting the upthrust. But the upthrust exerted by the gas is very less. Now, why does gas exert very less upthrust? The reason is what? Because it has got a very less density. So remember, basic simple, which have more more density, they will also exert more upthrust. So tell me, who will exert more upthrust, sea water or river water? It will be what? Sea water, because it is more denser. Okay, so because the gases exert very less upthrust, we don't feel anything like upthrust in air now when we are in the air all the time. But when you jump into water, you can feel that water is pushing you up. Just like when you dive into a pool of water, what will you see? That your body again rises up. So that is because of what? Upthrust. Okay, so now upthrust exerted by a body, or upthrust experienced by a body, it depends upon three factors: V, rho, G. Now what does each term mean? Okay, you all know what is FB. What do you mean by V here? We say VL means what? Volume of liquid which is displaced. Volume of liquid which is displaced. For example, in this above example out here, when the solid was submerged in water, how much volume of water must have been displaced? All this volume of water must have been displaced. So it depends upon how much volume of water is displaced. If you are displaced more volume of water, it will experience more upthrust. Then it depends upon the density of the liquid. More the density of the liquid, more will be the upthrust. And it depends upon G, meaning what? Acceleration due to gravity. But as we know, at a place your gravity will not change much. So the two major factors which actually on which upthrust depends is that upthrust is directly proportional to VL and upthrust is directly proportional to density of a liquid. So if you are submerging more part of a body, then it will exert or experience more upthrust also. So in this above example, you can see the object is submerged till where? Till that green portion here, till here. But now if I want to push this football further down, you have to apply a greater amount of force on it now to push it down. In fact, you have to keep applying that force to hold a football down inside the water. Now, why does that happen? Why do you have to hold it deep inside the water yet? The reason is what? As you start pushing it more and more inside, you are displacing more volume of liquid. And because you are displacing more volume of liquid, that's why it will also experience more upthrust. Got it? You must have noticed, when you release your hand, what will happen? That ball will bounce back. It might hit your face or on your nose. Okay, that is because it was experiencing higher amount of upthrust when you had completely submerged it. So these are the factors on which the upthrust depends. That is what? Factor number 1 is what? Directly proportional to volume of liquid. Number 2, density of liquid. Number 3 was gravity. But it does not really make a lot of difference at a place. Then, okay, another example. If I am dropping a bunch of feather, okay, say if I am dropping a bunch of feather and equal mass of a pebble. So see, first example, say there is say first a stone or a pebble, and I have an equal mass of, okay, I'm just drawing a bigger object like a piece of thermocol or feather. So I'll repeat once again. They have got the same mass, but you can see the volumes are not same. Okay, why are their volumes different? Because obviously they have got different densities, that's why. Now if I drop both of them in air, if they both are dropped in air, tell me which one will fall faster, the stone or the thermocol or feather? So in air, this one will fall first, this one will fall later. Okay, this one will hit the ground first and the feather will hit the ground later on. Why? Because feather has got more volume, so it experiences more upthrust. Got it? Okay, so guys, now next thing, another application now. So now most of the chapter is based on logic, what we are doing right now. So this is about the conditions to find out when an object will float and when an object will sink. So say this is a container, this is the level of water. Now out here we have, say, okay, so say this was filled with water. Now there are three different objects. So there is one object out here, say A, I'll name it as A. There is another object here which is B, and there is another object over here which is C. So it's basically, there are three different objects, or rather they say there are three different positions how a body is inside the liquid. So now whether this body, you can see some of the bodies are floating. So which bodies are floating? There are two bodies which are floating out here. So which ones are floating? A and C. Which ones are sinking? Only one of the body is sinking, which is that one, B. Now when will a body float or sink? It completely depends upon the density. So out here we say what? That the density of a solid is less than the density of liquid, then it will float. When the density of a solid is more than the density of liquid, it will sink. When the density of a solid is equal to density of a liquid, then again it will float. Okay, what is the difference in A and C? In both the cases they are floating, but the difference is what? That in case of A, the density of object is less than water, so it is completely above, or it will float while partially submerged. But when the densities are equal, it will float, but it will be what? Completely submerged. Okay, that's the difference. And you can see B, which is what? Completely submerged, meaning it is sinking in case of B. So we could explain the flotation or sinking how? On the basis of the densities. For floating, we can say when the density of a solid is less than or equal to liquid, it will float. But when the density of a solid is more than that of a liquid, it will sink. Okay. Now, whenever the weight of a body, if the weight of a body is less than the upthrust, then it will float. When the weight of a body is more than upthrust, then it will sink like this. And when the weight of a body is equal to the upthrust it experiences, then it will float but completely submerged. Okay, so these are three different conditions or positions or states how it can float or sink. Now so out here if I ask you that in case of B, what is the net force acting on B? How much force is acting on B? So the net force will be acting in what direction? Upwards or downwards? It will be downwards. But how much would be the net force here now? So the net force which you will experience will be equal to what? W minus FB. Same way, what would be the net force here in the numerator? Here in the body A, it will be FB minus W. And the net force on the object C will be what? 0. Because you can see FB and weight, they both are what? Equal. Okay, so this is all very very important. Basically these cases of A, B and C, because then you have got some give reasons based on this. Now there's another thing, you don't have it in full details, but you have to just know the reason for upthrust. Why does upthrust exert or is exerted on a body? Now see, why does a body experience an upthrust? So let's say out here you have an object. Say out here we have an object over here which is submerged inside the water. It is completely submerged here like this. So if you remember, we had learned about the pressure. So let's say there is a pressure exerted by water at here P1, and this pressure exerted by water over here P2. See, here P2 is exerting in the upward direction because it's a normal reaction. So we remember we did pressure, liquid exerts pressure in all the directions. So here the pressure is exerted in the upward direction. Now which pressure will be greater? So P2 will be greater than P1. So since your pressure 2 is greater than P1, the resultant pressure is what? Upwards or no? Yes. So the resultant pressure will be what? Upward on a body. And because the resultant pressure is upward, that's the reason the body will move what? Upwards. Okay. So, and can you tell me how much is the resultant pressure acting upwards? It will be P2 minus P1. Correct? And if you want to find out what is the resultant force which is acting upward, the resultant force on the object, what is the formula of force? Pressure into area. What's the resultant pressure? P2 minus P1. What's the area? A. Okay. So that is a result. Not very important though, but how much is I said? I mean, if you remember that much also, it's enough. Now, next thing, tell me what were the two factors on which the upthrust depends? If you remember, so it depends upon the volume of the liquid displaced and it depends upon the density of the liquid. Remember, upthrust does not depend upon the shape of a body. Okay, it does not depend upon the shape of a body. It only depends upon how much volume of the body is submerged or how much liquid is it displacing. Okay, so on the page number 106 in your textbook, okay, they have given a few give reasons and all. I mean, there are 3-4 give reasons which we already discussed. Just learn them properly. These ones are very often they ask those for give reasons. So you'll find those they have given lifting of a bucket full of water. Then when pulling a fish out of water, it appears lighter. And so there are such give reasons which you need to learn. Now we'll do the next concept is the Archimedes principle. Okay, now what is Archimedes principle? So whole of these now A part, the remaining part of A is based on Archimedes principle only. And this is really interesting. Okay, there is a story that Archimedes, I mean, wherever he used to work, his king had given him some job that he's supposed to find whether a crown which was made by some jeweler, whether it was made up of pure gold or not. And if he could not find out, then the king would kill him. So when he went for a bath in the public washroom or somewhere, and while getting into the tub of water, he realized he got some method to find out whether the crown is made up of pure gold or no. So they say then he just started running out from that bathtub and started shouting "Eureka, Eureka," which probably means I got it, I got it. Okay, anyways, we got nothing to do with all the history and all. We'll start with the principle now. Let's see, I'll tell you first the experiment what Archimedes did. So what he did was, he took one Eureka can. Okay, he took one Eureka can. I'll tell you see what he did first. So, okay, before even doing all that, first let's say here we have a spring balance. I hope you all know what a spring balance is. So say he is using a spring balance and he found the weight of an object using a spring balance. So the weight of an object is, say it is 50 GF. If you all know, GF means gram force. Now what he did, the same object now was then put into a container. The same object was then, it was submerged into a container or into an Eureka can. Now when you submerge this into Eureka can, okay, so you just completely submerged it into Eureka can, and from here there is an opening. Okay, that's spout what we call, and the water from here it falls into this container. So let's say Okay, let's say this is your solid here. This is your solid, and when you put it into the water, how much water will be displaced? Equal to the volume of the solid. So whatever is the volume of this object, which I've marked in red, is same as the volume of the liquid displaced into this Eureka can. So the liquid from here will go through this spout and it will fall here. And it was found that the reading of the spring balance now. Yes, tell me what would be the reading now. What did he notice? That now the reading of the spring balance was lesser. It turned out to be only 30 GF. So first question, why did it become lesser? Why did it seem to be lesser? That is because when it was put into the, when you put the solid into the liquid, it experiences what? Upthrust. And because it experiences upthrust, that's why it will show you a lesser reading. Now, so this one out here, what we've written, this is called as a weight of a body in air. Okay, this one is called as a weight of a body in air because you are weighing it in what? Air. That's why they call it as what? Weight of a body in air. So I'll write it as WA. This is called as what? Weight of a body in water because you are weighing it in water. Now what did Archimedes find? He found that the weight of this liquid, okay, coincidentally the weight of this liquid is also what? 30 GF. Okay, I'll repeat once again. Archimedes found that when he found the weight of this liquid, it was how much? 30 GF. So what did he notice? That the, sorry, not 30 GF, it will be supposed to be 20 GF. So what did Archimedes notice? That the upthrust, what is the upthrust that is experienced by this body when immersed in water? It will be the weight of a body in air minus weight of a body in water. So 50 minus 30. So how much did he find upthrust? 20 GF. Correct? And how much is the weight of the liquid that got collected over here? That was also what? 20 GF. So Archimedes found that whenever you submerge a body into a liquid, it will displace some liquid. Okay, and the weight of that much of liquid will be equal to what? Upthrust which it experiences. Guys, got it? Learn it properly. Learn and write this principle 5 times. Then only you'll remember it well. It's very, very important. Remember, if this concept or the principle, Archimedes principle is not clear to you, you must be just mugging up all the applications then. You probably are not understanding them. I'll repeat once again. Archimedes principle states that whenever a body is submerged partially or wholly in a liquid, it experiences upthrust. And that upthrust is equal to what? The weight of liquid displaced by it. Now, if I tell you that the volume of this liquid, if I tell you that the volume of, this solid is equal to say 20 cm cube, how much would be the volume of this liquid also? 20 cm cube. Displacement method. So what is displacement method? Volume of a solid is equal to volume of the liquid displaced. That is called as what? Displacement method. So is everything clear? So the volume of the liquid which gets displaced out here is equal to what? The volume of solid which is submerged, which is equal to what? 20 cm cube in this example. The weight of the liquid which we collect in the container or the beaker is 20 GF, which is also equal to what? The upthrust. Now if I ask you what is the loss in weight of a body in this experiment, how much is the loss in weight? Remember, it will be equal to the upthrust, which is also what? 20 GF. Now you understand why does that object appear to be lighter? So see, in case B, while you're holding the spring balance in case B, you will find it easier to hold compared to A. Why? Because it is going to weigh lesser to you. That's why. So when a solid is submerged into a container, it will experience upthrust, hence it will weigh lesser. Okay. So this is more of like, this is whole of your A part of the chapter. Now the B part which we are doing, okay, B part is about relative density. So we are not discussing B part right now. We will discuss the C part of the chapter first. Okay, now in the C part, they have, it's just an extension of what we are doing right now. In C part, you are going to learn strictly only about the flotation. Okay, we are going to learn only about the flotation now, meaning only we are talking about the other case, the case what we did now, when a body is completely submerged but floating, or a body is partially floating, those cases now. Now guys, see, first in flotation, first thing, when will an object float? Okay, this is a little confusing guys now. See, when will an object float? When it is experiencing what? More upthrust than its own weight, or when the upthrust and the weight are equal, then only it will float. Okay, but if I tell you, okay, let's say out here we have some bucket or a tub in which a body is floating. Again, these are the two forces, weight acting downward and upthrust acting in the upward direction. Now see, whenever any object is floating anywhere, whether in floating in air or in water, remember that these two things have to be equal. The weight of a body have to be equal to what? Upthrust. The two forces have to be equal, then only it will float. What if weight was greater than Fb? Then what would have happened? It will start moving downwards. If Fb was greater than W, then what will happen? It will start moving upwards. Okay, so that's the difference. So while floating, remember that the weight of a body and the upthrust, they both are what? Equal to each other. Fine. So if I tell you that it is experiencing an upthrust of 20 GF, then the weight of an object also must be how much? 20 GF. Because only if they both are balanced, then only it will float over there. Okay. So according to law of flotation, what can you say? That the weight of a floating body is equal to the upthrust. Clear? Now see, I'll tell you some logic here now. Weight of a body is equal to the upthrust. According to what? Law of flotation. But according to Archimedes' principle, upthrust experienced by a body is equal to the weight of a liquid displaced. Correct? Is equal to what? Weight of a liquid displaced. So this will be what? Archimedes' principle. Yes, sorry, out here now I shouldn't write law of flotation, because I'm saying weight is equal to the upthrust. Now if I combine these two equations, the first two, this is just the condition for floating, the first one. Now if you compare these two, what will you conclude? That therefore the weight of a body is equal to what? Weight of the liquid displaced. This is called as what? Law of flotation. Got it? It is called as what? Law of flotation. So whenever a body is floating, its own weight is equal to weight of the liquid displaced. In fact, if a body wants to float, it must displace that much weight of a liquid which is equal to its own weight. If it cannot displace, then obviously it will not be able to float. Got it? This is called as law of flotation. So I'll repeat once again. The weight of a floating body is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced by its submerged part. Okay, just to make it clear to you, I'll give you one more example. Say out here there is an object which is floating. Okay, we have an object which is floating. Now you are given that the weight of this object, okay, the weight of this object acting downwards is say 50 Newton. Tell me how much will be the upthrust it will experience. The upthrust it will experience will be equal to the weight of a body, which is also equal to what? 50 Newton. So upward force and the downward forces, they both are what? Equal. Correct? And how much is the weight of the liquid displaced? So the weight of liquid displaced will also be equal to what? 50 Newton according to law of flotation. So if this body was not able to displace 50 Newton of liquid, then it will not be able to float. That's the condition for floating. Clear? Okay, so I hope it is clear to you. If not, you may rewind it a little bit. It's a little difficult, as I told you, this concept of floating. Okay, guys, now another thing you must have seen, when you, like, if you drop a piece of a thermocol in water or a piece of cork or wood or something, they all, or a piece or an ice cube or something in water, you will see that they all float. But if you've noticed now, the way they float, meaning the part of it which is submerged in water, is different for all of them. So how much will float inside and how much will be outside, it all depends upon the densities. It depends upon the ratio of density of the solid and the density of the liquid. Okay, so we'll discuss that later on. Now I'm just explaining you some of the applications of the principle of flotation, though most of them you've already done actually. So the first application is what, about that iron nail. So as we know that the iron nail will sink in water, but the iron iron ship will not sink in water. So now they can ask you, why does this happen, that an iron nail sinks in water but an iron ship will not sink in water? So first point you have to say that the iron nail is more denser as compared to water. But an iron ship, okay, it is hollow from inside, and because it is made hollow from inside, its average density is what? Lesser than the density of water, and hence it will float. Okay, so remember you have to use the word what? Average density. So you will be using the word average density for what? For the iron ship, remember. So wherever the objects are hollow or it's a mixture, you have to make use of what word? Average density, which is less than the density of water, and hence the iron ship will float. So see what happens basically is, let's say if this is an iron ship, as I told you, it is made what? Hollow. So when it goes in water, it is going to displace all this much volume of water, right? So how much ever is submerged inside, that much volume of water will be displaced. Now the weight of the liquid which is displaced over here is equal to the weight of the ship, and that's why they are able to float. But now what will happen? What will be observation if more number of people jump into this ship? If more number of people will jump into it, then what will happen? The weight of the ship will increase. So now it needs to displace more volume of liquid. More water has to be displaced now. Clear? So more the load or more the number of people getting into the ship, then more weight of liquid have to be displaced. Only then it will be able to float. Okay. Now on all these ships now there is a line. Okay. There is a white color line, but I am marking it out here with the green color line, or I'll just draw another figure for this. So let's say in this iron ship, on all the iron ships now there is a white color line. As I told you, I'm marking it as which color right now? Green color. This line is a safety line, and it is called as what? Plimsoll line. Now what is the significance of this line? So if your water level is up to the Plimsoll line, then you are safe. But if the level of water goes above it here, then it is dangerous. Why is it dangerous now? Because then there are chances that your ship might sink. Or if the level goes down, is it safe or dangerous? It is still very dangerous if the level goes very down. Why? Because now there are chances that due to little wind or something, your ship might just topple down. So that's why you can see this Plimsoll line. That's a safety line. You are always try to maintain the line on that level only. If you are going above, it's dangerous. If you are going below, then also it is dangerous. Okay. Now tell me, if you are moving your ship from sea water to river water, you are moving it from where? From sea to river water. Say these are the different levels now, A, B, C. So while you were in sea water, your level of water outside was A. But when you move from sea to river, what will happen to the level of water? From A, where will it go? B or C? So from A, it will go to what? River. When it goes into the river, it is less denser, so it will be more submerged. So the level will go up to C. Got it? So they can ask you one more application. While you are moving from we already discussed about the Plimsoll line. Fine. So guys, yeah, these are all the applications that they can ask you in the for the flotation of ion ship. Now, next thing. So remember one very important word, as I told you, you have to always mention about the average density, and you have to say what, that all these ion chips are made what, hollow from inside, so that average density becomes lesser, and hence then they are able to float easily. Now next application is about the flotation of human body. How can human bodies float so easily? So first of all, you must know that human bodies are not, we do not float by nature. Like how there are certain animals, okay, they can float by nature. They don't need to really learn to swim, but they can still float. So though most of the human can float, but we need to learn how to float or how to swim. It's not that, though there are still always some people who are not able to swim well. I cannot swim well. Now, so if they ask you, now why does this happen? So basically the average density of human, okay, I'm using the word average because we are not a we are made up of different material in your body. It's a composition, it's a mixture, so that's why we use the word average. So the average density of human, it depends upon what, the presence of or the weight of the bone, blood, muscles, fat in your body. So that's why we use the word what, average. Now the average density of human is slightly more as compared to the density of water, and that's the reason we need to learn how to float. So in fact the density of our body is how much, 1.07 gram per centimeter cube. Okay, this is with empty lungs, but obviously when you'll fill up your lungs with air, your body will expand and then this density will decrease. So you can see clearly this density is slightly more than that of water, and that's why it is difficult for us to float. Do you all know what's the density of water? 1 gram per centimeter cube, and that too at 4 degrees. So at normal temperature it's going to be lesser than that. So they say a good swimmer can float on water like a floating object. Okay, some of you, or you might have seen some people, they just float on the surface of water. Almost the whole body is submerged in water except their face, or rather the mouth and nose, and they just continuously keep on breathing very softly, calmly, and then they are able to float. Because at that time now, what they are trying to do is, their density and the density of water is what, same, and that's how they are able to float that way. Okay. Next thing, where will you find it easier to float, in sea water or river water? So you will find it easier to float in sea water because it is more denser. Okay. Also, have you heard of Dead Sea? Have you heard of Dead Sea? In Dead Sea, the salt content is what? Very high. It is around how much, 1.2 or 1.16 gram per centimeter cube. Obviously more than the density of human body, and that's why there we don't need to bother. You will not sink only. So people go and just, if you go into Dead Sea, even if you want to drown, you cannot drown, because the density of the liquid is more than yours, and hence you will float. Now, next thing is the submarines. So they can ask you, how can submarines float? First, if you remember, you had this in the 8th standard, that submarines are watertight boat. Exactly the same give reason was there. And what's the use of a submarine? That submarines can float on the surface of water, and they can also go inside the water. Okay guys, just a rough diagram just to make you understand what they are. Now submarines, they have a special tank in them, that there's a hollow tank at the bottom here or on the sides. So what's the use of this tank? When they want to go down, when they want to dive, they will fill up these tanks with what? Water. And when they want to resurface, when they want to again come up, then what will they do? They will empty these tanks. So these tanks which were filled with water now will be empty by use of the pump. Once you empty them, what will happen? The density will become lesser, and then they will again rise up. Okay, so these tanks which are there in them, where you can fill up water and empty them, they are called as ballast tank. So ballast tanks are the one which you can fill them with water, or you can empty them also. Okay, number 4 give reason is about the flotation of ice, or iceberg rather. So how does icebergs or ice float, they float like this, like 90% of it is inside water and only 10% of it is what, outside the water. So like see here, this is 90% of it is inside water. So because 90% of it is inside water, what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. That's why there's a phrase also, if you all know, tip of the iceberg. Okay, so because you can see only 10%, we feel what, that this iceberg or the size of this ice is very, very less, and that's why they are very, very dangerous. So if you're still not convinced why is it dangerous, you must watch the movie Titanic. So if you know, out there the Titanic, it goes and it hits the iceberg, and when it strikes there's a crack developed in it, and eventually it sinks. Now next thing is about the flotation of fish. How can fishes float in water? So again, even that is based on the similar logic only for fish also, like humans only. But there is another difference is what, that fishes, they have a special organ which is called as what, swim bladder. Okay, I don't know if any of you have swim bladder, let me know. So because of the swim bladder now, so swim bladder acts like a ballast tank for them, like how it was in a submarine. So again, the swim bladder, when you want to rise up, what they do, they will start filling up gas in their body. They diffuse gas, or you can say what, air into their body, because of which what will happen, volume will increase, upthrust on it will increase, so it will start rising up. Got it? Now if it wants to come down, if it wants to go inside, what will it do? So it will again empty the bladder. It will empty the bladder, so it will become more, like the volume will decrease, it will get more thinner, upthrust will decrease, and it starts sinking again. Okay, and the last give reason is about the rising of balloons. Okay, how can balloons float or rise? So out here we are talking about, you must have played with the balloons which are filled with helium, or you may also fill up with hydrogen. So if you fill up a balloon with helium or hydrogen, what will you notice, that these balloons, okay, that these balloons, they will float in air. Why will they float in air? Because their density is less as compared to the density of air. So say if you have a balloon here, and if I fill it up with helium, and outside there is what, air. So what will this air do? It will exert upthrust on this balloon. And because it is exerting upthrust, this balloon will start rising up. And the weight of the balloon along with the helium, okay, the weight of the balloon along with the helium is less as compared to the upthrust. And that's why it has to float. Okay. Now my question is, when it starts rising up, how high will it rise up? Will it go to moon? Obviously, it will not go to moon. The reason is what, as the balloon starts going upwards, what will happen to the density of the air? The density of air starts what? Decreasing. We know this, right? As you go upwards, the density of air becomes lesser because air is thinner. So density of air will decrease. It means what? That the upthrust on the balloon will start decreasing. And that's why at some point, the weight will become equal to upthrust and it will stop. Or at that point, it will start floating. Guys, got this logic? The balloon will keep on rising up first because it is experiencing more upthrust than its weight. But as it starts going upwards, upthrust starts decreasing. And at some point, upthrust and the weight will become what? Equal, and that is when it will stop moving upwards. I'll give a very simple example, similar analogy. You take a football and completely submerge it in water. And then when you're holding it, it is difficult for us to hold over there. Why? Because it is experiencing more upthrust than its own weight. So, it is your force which is helping to put that football inside. Now the moment you release it, what happens, since the upthrust is more on it compared to their weight, the football will start what? Rising up. How? Look here, I'll just draw the diagram. Just refer to this. The football is submerged inside, and now it will start what? Rising up. It'll keep on rising up till where, till the weight of a body is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced or the upthrust. So if you look at this position, weight is equal to what? Up thrust. But when it was inside, weight is less than the up thrust. That's the reason it will rise up. Okay, so guys, this is the theory of only A and C part. Okay, watch this video. I mean, after you've seen this video, also read or go through the textbook. Just go through it once. Remember, we've done only A and C part. This does not include B part. I'll make another video for the B part of the chapter, guys. So watch it, write down your doubts and all, make your own notes and all, and we'll discuss the doubts in the class. Okay.